Lyra Castro never imagined her life would spiral into chaos overnight. Once the proud owner of her late father's art gallery nestled in the heart of Makati, she now faced bankruptcy, betrayal, and an auction that threatened to strip her of everything. Just when all hope seemed lost, an offer came from the last man she would ever trust, Andres Navarro, the billionaire playboy whose scandals frequently made headlines. Andres wasn't just wealthy, he was reckless, dangerous, and undeniably captivating. But behind his infamous reputation was a secret. To inherit his family's empire, he must marry within the next 30 days. His solution? A contract marriage with Lyra. 1 year, no love, no strings attached. In return, she'd receive enough money to save her gallery and rebuild her life. The rules were simple. The risks were not. Thrust into Andres's dazzling world of wealth, deception, and ruthless power plays, Lyra quickly learned that nothing about her new husband was predictable. Every smirk hid a secret, every touch felt like a test, and every whispered promise left her breathless. But when someone from Andres's past resurfaced, someone who knew the one thing he'd been desperately trying to keep hidden, Lyra realized she wasn't just playing wife to a billionaire. She was caught in a dangerous game. And when she discovered a shocking clause hidden deep within their contract, one that Andres never told her about, she realized she may have just signed away more than her freedom. Lyra's hands trembled as she flipped through the final pages of their marriage contract, her pulse pounding in her ears. And then she saw it, a clause buried beneath the legal jargon, hidden in plain sight. Her breath hitched. Her stomach twisted. Failure to uphold the marriage will result in permanent ownership transfer of all Castro assets to Andres Navarro. Her father's gallery, her home, everything. Lyra's vision blurred as Andres's voice echoed behind her, smooth and calculated. You should have read the fine print, sweetheart. You're making a mistake, Lyra. I clenched my fists under the table, willing my hands to stay steady even though my entire world was crumbling around me. Across from me, attorney Danilo Santos, my late father's attorney and a longtime family friend, watched me with tired eyes, his salt and pepper hair disheveled from what I assumed was a long day of trying to salvage what little remained of the Castro name. A mistake? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Daniel, my father's gallery is about to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. I have no money, no options, and in less than a week, everything he built will belong to someone else. I leaned forward, my nails pressing into the cool wood of his desk. So tell me, how exactly am I making a mistake? Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. Because you're desperate. And desperate people make reckless choices. Andres Navarro is a solution. I cut him off. He's the only person who can help me right now. I barely believed the words as they left my mouth, but that didn't make them any less true. Andres Navarro wasn't just some billionaire playboy with a tabloid reputation and a string of beautiful women in his wake. He was calculated, ruthless, and untouchable. The kind of man who never did anything without a reason. And now, for whatever twisted purpose, he wanted me. Contract marriage, 1 year, no love, no emotions. Just a business transaction with a payout big enough to erase my debts and secure my future. Sounded simple enough. But with a man like Andres, nothing was ever simple. You don't know what you're getting yourself into, Daniel warned. But I had already made my decision. I stood up, smoothing out my coat. I'll see you at the gallery's auction, if it even comes to that. With that, I walked out of his office, my heart hammering in my chest. The moment I stepped into Andres's penthouse later that night, I knew I had walked into something far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. The place was immaculate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Manila skyline. Sleek black furniture screamed wealth and power. The bar was stocked with liquor I couldn't even pronounce. But it wasn't the luxury that unsettled me. It was the man standing by the fireplace, watching me like a predator sizing up his prey. Andres Navarro. He was taller than I remembered, his sharp-cut suit tailored to perfection, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd just run a hand through it. But it was his eyes that held me in place, cold, unreadable, and yet somehow burning with something unspoken. "You're late," he said smoothly, taking a sip of his whiskey. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Your assistant only sent the car an hour ago." A smirk. "Fair enough, sit." I hesitated, then made my way to the chair across from him, ignoring the way my pulse quickened as he studied me. This wasn't the first time I'd been in the same room as Andres, but it was the first time we were sitting face to face, with my entire future hanging in the balance. He set his glass down and leaned forward. "You know why you're here." I nodded. "The contract." His lips curved slightly, as if amused by my directness. "Do you have any concerns?" I had a million concerns, but voicing them wouldn't change my reality. "I just want to know why," I said instead. "Why me? Out of all the women you could choose, why a broke gallery owner drowning in debt?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched me, as if debating whether or not I was even worth an explanation. Finally, he exhaled, rolling his whiskey glass between his fingers. "My father has conditions," he said. "I need a wife, and I need one fast. But I also need someone controllable." His gaze darkened. "Someone who won't get any ideas about staying beyond the contract." I swallowed. "And you think I won't?" "I know you won't," he murmured, "because we both need something from each other. And when that year is up, you'll walk away with more money than you've ever had, and I'll have my inheritance. It's a win-win." I hated how easily he said it, how detached he was, as if this was just another business deal for him. He pulled a folder from the table and slid it toward me. "Read it, sign it, and we'll announce the engagement tomorrow." I reached for the papers, my fingers trembling slightly as I flipped through the pages. It was all there in black and white: 1 year. No intimacy unless mutually agreed upon. A payout of Philippine peso 550 million at the end. And an ironclad confidentiality clause. It was everything I needed. And yet, my gut twisted as I stared at the dotted line where my name belonged. "Having second thoughts?" Andres asked, amusement flickering in his eyes. I forced a breath and picked up the pen. "This isn't about feelings. This is about survival." I signed my name. Andres' smirk deepened as he took the contract and tucked it away. Then, in one swift movement, he stood and reached for my hand. "Welcome to hell, Mrs. Navarro." I didn't expect things to escalate so fast. The next morning, my face was splashed across every tabloid. Billionaire Playboy engaged to mystery woman. Reporters swarmed the gallery, digging into my past, my father's legacy, my failures. Andres, on the other hand, was unfazed. "Get used to it," he said as he slid into the back seat of his limo, barely glancing at the headlines. "This is just the beginning." I bit back a sharp response. But later that night, as I lay in the guest bedroom of his penthouse, I realized something. I had given up my life to a man I barely knew, and the worst part? Something about Andres Navarro didn't add up. I had assumed he was doing this for his inheritance, but there was something else. Something unsaid. The way his jaw clenched whenever his father's name was mentioned. The way his eyes darkened whenever I asked about his past. I had agreed to 1 year with Andres, but something told me I might not survive it. The night before the engagement party, I woke up to the sound of voices outside my room. Angry, I crept toward the door, pressing my ear against the wood. "I don't trust her," a voice hissed. Andres' voice was cold. "You don't need to." "This is a mistake," the other person snapped. "If she finds out," a sharp crash. Silence. Then Andres' voice again. Lower this time. "Dangerous. She won't find out. She's not part of this." I stumbled back, my pulse racing. Not part of what? I had signed a contract for a business arrangement. But now, standing in the dark, my breath caught in my throat as I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just Andres Navarro's temporary wife. I was in the middle of something far more dangerous. And I had no idea what I had just signed up for. "You look like a deer caught in headlights." Andres's voice was smooth, unreadable as he observed me from across the limousine. The city lights of Makati flashed past in a blur, but all I could focus on was the weight of what I had done. I had signed my name on the contract. I had agreed to be his wife for a year. And now there was no turning back. "I don't belong here," I muttered, more to myself than to him. He smirked, stretching out his long legs, completely at ease in his perfectly tailored suit. "That's where you're wrong, Lyra. You belong wherever I say you do." I turned to him sharply. "That's not how this works. I agreed to the marriage. I didn't agree to become your puppet." His gaze darkened, something dangerous flickering behind those piercing eyes. "Careful, sweetheart. You're entering my world now. And in my world, those who don't learn to adapt get swallowed whole." The limousine slowed as we approached the grand ballroom of the Manila Diamond Hotel. Through the tinted windows, I saw the flashing cameras, the sea of reporters, the glittering guests arriving in their designer gowns and sharp tuxedos. I felt my pulse quicken. I wasn't ready for this. I glanced down at my dress and off-shoulder, midnight blue silk gown that Andres's assistant had delivered to me that morning. It fit like a second skin, hugging every curve, making me feel like I was wearing someone else's life. Someone glamorous, someone powerful, someone who wasn't drowning in debt and desperation. Andres leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "Smile for the cameras. If they sense fear, they'll tear you apart." The door opened and suddenly I was blinded by the flashing lights. Andres stepped out first, exuding confidence, the picture of wealth and control. A second later, his hand was in mine, pulling me close as he guided me out of the car. The reporters shouted his name. "Andres, is this your new fiancée? Lyra Castro, how does it feel to go from an unknown artist to the future Mrs. Navarro? Is this a real engagement or just another one of Andres's games?" He gripped my waist tighter. "Don't answer." We made our way inside the ballroom, where chandeliers sparkled like constellations overhead, and the floor gleamed like polished gold. Every eye turned to us, and I felt like I was walking into a den of lions. Powerful men and elegantly dressed women whispered behind crystal flutes of champagne. A string quartet played in the background, but their music couldn't drown out the pounding of my heart. "Relax," Andres murmured as he led me through the crowd. "They're just vultures in gowns. You really know how to calm a girl down." I muttered under my breath. His lips twitched. "You'll get used to it." The night dragged on, a blur of forced smiles, stiff introductions, and fake congratulations. Andres played his part flawlessly charming, poised, a man in control. I, on the other hand, was holding on by a thread. Every handshake felt like a test. Every glance felt like judgment. By the time we made it to the balcony for some air, I could barely breathe. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked, leaning against the railing. "It's not just about the inheritance, is it?" Andres was silent for a moment. Then he joined me at the railing, his expression unreadable. "You're smart, Lyra. Smarter than I gave you credit for." I turned to him. "Then tell me the truth." "The truth?" His voice dropped. "The Navarro Empire is more than boardrooms and stock options. It's a dynasty built on blood, secrets, and leverage. My father doesn't just want me married. He wants me controlled. He wants me tethered to someone safe, someone who won't ask questions. So I'm your leash," I said bitterly. He looked at me then, really looked at me. "No, you're my shield." I didn't know what to say to that. And before I could respond, someone called Andres's name. We returned to the ballroom, and I slipped back into the role I'd agreed to play. The billionaire's wife-to-be, the pawn in his game. But as the night wore on, as I watched Andres navigate the crowd like a king holding court, I began to wonder what exactly had I gotten myself into. Because if he was the king, that meant someone else out there was trying to take his crown. And I had just stepped into the center of the battlefield. The morning after the engagement gala felt unreal. The headlines were everywhere, from glossy magazines in Quezon City to gossip blogs out of Cebu. Billionaire Andres Navarro ties the knot soon. With my face splashed beside his, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from old classmates, former colleagues from the gallery, and even estranged relatives who suddenly remembered they had my number. I didn't respond to any of them. I just sat on the velvet chaise in the corner of Andres's massive penthouse in Bonifacio Global City, staring at the Manila skyline and trying to make sense of my new reality. It wasn't just the marriage contract that weighed heavily on my mind, it was everything else. The clause, the warning, the voices I'd overheard. She won't find out. She's not part of this. What exactly wasn't I part of? I was his wife now, at least on paper. Shouldn't I be part of everything? When Andres finally walked in from his morning workout, sweat glistening on his collarbone, a towel slung around his neck like some kind of soap opera heartthrob, I couldn't hold back anymore. We need to talk. He raised an eyebrow, grabbing a bottle of water from the minibar. Good morning to you too. Last night. The conversation outside my room. Who was that? He didn't flinch, but the tension in his shoulders gave him away. You were eavesdropping? I live here now, remember? I snapped. You brought me into this world, and I'm just trying to survive in it. Andres took a long sip of water before meeting my gaze. It was my cousin, Emilio. He disagrees with my choices. He said if I find out, and you won't, Andres. Cut in, his tone steel. Because whatever he's worried about doesn't concern you. That's not how marriage works, I shot back. Even fake ones. He looked at me like I'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. This isn't a love story, Lyra. You signed a contract. You get your gallery back. I get my inheritance. We play the parts, and that's it. Then why does it feel like I've stepped into a war zone? I asked quietly. For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw something behind those cold eyes, pain, regret, maybe even fear, but it was gone in a blink. Go to your gallery today, he said instead. Check the accounts. The debt's cleared. Your staff has been paid in advance. It's yours again. I blinked. Just like that? Just like that. Congratulations, Mrs. Navarro. That afternoon, I took a car to the Carter Gallery in Intramuros, the place that once felt like my sanctuary. Sure enough, the accounts were clean. The doors had been repaired. My assistant, Tony, greeted me like I was a returning queen. I walked through the halls, touching each canvas like it was a piece of my soul restored. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had traded something more than just a year of my life. Andres Navarro wasn't just a powerful man. He was a man with enemies. And now, by wearing his ring, even if only symbolically, I had just painted a target on my back. That night, as I returned to the penthouse, the doorman handed me a plain envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Andres, younger, smiling, but not the polished smile he wore for the media. A real smile. And next to him, a woman I didn't recognize. The photo was marked with a red X over her face. I stared at it, my stomach dropping. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Ask your husband about Camila. I clutched the envelope, my hands trembling. Andres wasn't just keeping secrets. Someone wanted me to uncover them. And I had a sinking feeling that once I did, I'd wish I hadn't. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept the envelope on my nightstand, staring at the photo every few minutes like it would change. Camila, the woman in the photo, had kind eyes, a wide smile, and something familiar in her posture, like someone used to holding her ground in dangerous places. And the red X drawn over her face wasn't a warning, it was a threat. I waited until I heard Andres' footsteps retreat to his private gym before I slipped out of bed. I found him on the rooftop balcony, shirtless, the Manila skyline glinting behind him like molten steel. He didn't turn as I approached. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked without looking at me. I held the envelope in front of him. "Who is Camila?" That got his attention. Slowly, Andres turned. The blood drained from his face, his usual composure cracking like thin glass. He took the envelope from me with a trembling hand, stared at the photo, then crumpled it in one. Swift motion. "Where did you get this?" "It was waiting for me downstairs. With a message, 'Ask your husband about Camila.'" He cursed under his breath in Tagalog, pacing like a lion that just realized the cage was closing. "She was someone I cared about," he finally said, "years ago. She worked with my father at Navarro Holdings." "She's dead, isn't she?" I asked. He nodded. "Died in a fire. They said it was an accident. I wasn't so sure. After what happened, I walked away from the family business. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. That's why the inheritance clause exists. My father didn't want me stepping away without a fight. And you think someone murdered her?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw vulnerability instead of arrogance. "I know someone did. And I've spent the last 4 years pretending I don't care, because pretending keeps me alive." I should have walked away. I should have told him this wasn't my fight. But I couldn't, because underneath the lies and the contracts and the staged engagement, I was beginning to care too. "Then let me help you," I said. "Whatever. This is whoever sent that photo, they know I'm involved now. They've made it my fight too." "You have no idea what that means," he growled. "You think this is some telenovela? People die, Lyra. People die when secrets rot in silence," I shot back. "And I won't spend a year as your wife in name only while someone tries to bury us both." He stared at me for a long moment. Then something shifted. "All right," he said. "But we do it my way. We keep up appearances. No one knows what we're digging into. And whatever happens, you don't go anywhere without security." "Fine," I said. "But you tell me everything. No more lies, deal?" We shook on it, like fools thinking we had control over a storm already in motion. The next day, we flew to Cebu under the guise of a honeymoon shoot for a lifestyle magazine. In truth, Andres was meeting an old contact, a former Navarro Holdings executive who vanished after Camila's death and had only recently resurfaced with a new identity. We met him in a coastal villa outside Oslab. The man, now calling himself Tito Raymond, had sun-worn skin and eyes that had seen too much. "Camila wasn't just your father's assistant," he told Andres. "She was his whistleblower. She had evidence, paper trails, offshore accounts, names of board members tied to trafficking networks. She was going to take it to the government." "And then the fire," Andres whispered. "The fire was a message," Raymond said. "To her, and to anyone else who thought about opening their mouth. Your father wasn't just running a business empire. He was running a cartel with a corporate face." My stomach turned. Andres was shaking with rage. "You're telling me my father killed her?" "No," Raymond said. "I'm telling you he ordered it. And if he knows you've started asking questions again, especially with a wife by your side, he won't hesitate to finish what he started." On the flight back to Manila, Andres was silent. I held his hand the entire time, even when he didn't. Squeeze back. That night, he didn't sleep. Neither did I, because we weren't just pretending anymore. We were married in name, yes, but also in battle. Two people bound not by love, but by a war we didn't choose. The only question now was how many truths we could survive before everything caught fire again. With that their story ended, no longer bound by deals, but by something far greater: love, the one thing neither of them had expected to find. And if you Enjoyed this Billionaire romance audiobook? Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means the world. See you in the next one.